instead of doing a lecture with the PowerPoint slides, which just kind of go through the windows of what you'll see, what I'd like to do is demonstrate a couple of the things that we have done, haven't done, some of the things you've done, some of the things hopefully are a little bit obvious. But I want to look at custom console MMC console is nothing really dramatic. They want you to do roles. We've done roles. There's, I don't think, any reason to do that. You've added roles. You've added roles through the GUI. You've added roles through the server command.exe. So you know how to do those things. And obviously on the final exam, you're going to have to add roles. And yes, I'm going to give you a list of the ones that you have to add. I have added already, to try to speed things up, the Active Directory binaries. So the only thing you'll have to do is the DC promo part of it. Update, Windows Update, and that's one of the real major focuses of this chapter, the WSUS. I've downloaded and put on this server the WSUS installation files, the one that you'll need. To get to it, just to give you some practice, you'll need to configure a point-to-point tunneling protocol client to get there and copy those to your machine to do the install. When you do the WSUS install, it's going to ask you to pick the things that you want to update. Windows picks a bunch of stuff for you already. When you go through that, just pick the XP updates. There is an option in it to allow you to update from another server. Tried that out. When you update from another server, you become what's called a downstream server, so you don't have a lot of control over what goes on. Go ahead and let it update from the Microsoft site. This is the thing, it ain't going to be real fast. Don't expect this to happen in 3 or 4 minutes, because what it has to do is go out and find what you need and how to get those things. And then the baseline security analyzer, which we've already done once before, but I want to take a look. I've done a little scan on this just to look at what it does. But first, let's look at the custom console, MMC. And when we get into this thing, File, Add, Remove, Snap-in, and then just pick the snap-ins that you want. If you're managing DFS, DHCP, all of those different things, certificate managers, the Active Directory tools, and the list goes on and on and on and on. You can create your own custom console so that you don't have to keep going back to the administrative tools and open this one and open that one and open whatever else. And as an example, the ones that I have open right now on this one, Console 1, that's the one I just opened. Update Services, DNS Manager, Reliability and Performance Manager, Group Policy Management, Update Services. All of those are MMCs that have been opened individually. They could have all been put into a custom console. So that's custom console. Again, nothing dramatic about it. It's there. It's something that I think we forget about because get focused on the labs and it says to do this or to do that or to do the whatever. The Server Manager, there's lots of options in Server Manager to manage through also. You can do it. You can do it from either location. While we're here, the baseline security analyzer, I did a scan of the domain that's in here. Some of your machines are still left. Some of them it can get to. Some of them it can't get to. When I go back, it says that it has an incomplete scan. It does have an incomplete scan for various reasons, and one of those reasons that it tells me later on is it could be a firewall configuration issue. That goes back to firewall. What do you want? If you're running the firewalls locally, you've got to be aware of what you have to open up, what you have to allow in for the services that you want to do. But this one did it. We did a source from the worst first. This one goes through the security update. The SQL updates were good. I got a security update missing, and we're going to look at WSUS, and yes, I do have a security updates missing, show you what it looks like after you get it installed. Security updates are missing or not approved. Windows security updates, 82 of them, and yes, that's true because what I want to do is after we do this, yes, they're missing, and now why are they missing? And we'll kind of walk the dog backwards on this one. We now know they're missing. Why are they missing? Because automatic update is now configured on this machine, but it's configured through a policy so they can only get the stuff through the WSUS server, which I've installed on it. Password expiration, 103 accounts have non-expiring passwords. Those are the kinds of things it'll tell you. You can, as long as you have, again, as you have the authority, go through and scan your entire domain. But, again, you have to have the firewalls configured correctly so that you'll be able to actually read the information out of them. And back to the what have we done, is it right or is it wrong? We've just opted to not have the firewalls running internally. Is it right or wrong? No, it's just something that works for us. The threats that we feel that we do or don't have, that's not become an issue. At some point, it may become an issue, and we turn those things on. So the baseline security analyzer, and the reason that it doesn't have those security updates, because it was missing a bunch of them, is because I haven't allowed them. I haven't turned on the security updates. The critical updates I have approved in this one. The security updates I have not approved for the domain. Some of them were already installed based on the things that we had done previously. When you do your computers, you can break your computers up into groups, and you can manage them by groups, which ones get which updates. For instance, you may want to manage your domain controllers differently than you do other machines. One thing that you may want to do with the domain controllers is when you go in and create the policies, don't necessarily approve them for immediate install. You can manage that in whatever way you want. Workstations, you may want to just do it. What we have done historically is have one domain controller that does an auto update, and if it doesn't break it, then you go put it on the others. And if it does break it, you've got, since we're running 3 domain controllers, we've got another one that's still functioning that we won't put it on. We can take the broken one out, put a new one in, and still maintain the 2 domain controllers. You manage this the way that you want to manage it. Downstream servers, reports, let's see, I want to look at options here, and we'll go back and look at a couple of other things. In the options, these are kind of what you're going to, not kind of, but these are what you're going to go through when you initially install this thing. It's going to take you through a wizard. You have to do this configuration before it'll really go through it with you. When you get into the products and classifications, the products, we have a whole big list, and they're all Microsoft products, obviously. When you go down through this thing, you don't need, for this demonstration purpose, to do most of them. I actually picked too many, I think, when I went through. I picked Windows 7, and to simplify matters, you have an XP machine. When you go through here, just pick the XP updates. It's going to make the updating, the downloading a little faster, and you're only going to have to do a policy. But you're going to have to do a policy, and you're going to have to join that XP machine to your domain. You've already got a domain on your full install. So to go through this thing, you need to go through all the steps in order to do that. Yeah, I know this is the last one, and generally towards the end you say, well, maybe this one isn't so important. This one's a really big deal when you get into a domain, when you get into a large number of machines. Because what it allows you to do is have the server go to Microsoft and get the updates, and then distribute the updates, the ones that you want and on your schedule, to your machines, instead of configure for auto update and using the WAN bandwidth or whatever else you're going to do. You don't have as many machines on the internet when you do those things. It does give you a number of reports. This says computers needing update 7, and golly, that's how many I have in here. Some of you haven't taken your machines out of my domain yet. Don't know if they're days or nights. I just know that they're there. Updates needed by computers, update status 437, because I haven't approved them all. Yes, Are there that many that probably are going to need that? Absolutely, when we go through this thing. Over here, synchronization, synchronize now. The synchronization is when it goes to Microsoft to check the updates. 4, 2, 20, and 1:11 a.m. That's, again, one of the things that you're going to configure when you go through the wizard after you install this thing is when do you go check the updates. After you get done doing the initial install, it's going to go do an immediate manual update. Just let it do that. If you can time this so that you can install this thing, let it go do its thing for all the updating and go do something else that's going to probably serve your time a little bit better. So you may want to jump out of what you're doing and go ahead and get this thing going because, again, I think this one is one that you really want to know how to do when you get done here. It is important when you get into a domain environment. When I look at these things, I have my little demo client here that says it's got 99% of them. The last status reported, it reported the last status at 4/2 today, 2012 at 7:15 a.m. This reporting, when it checks for updates on a regular basis, I've told and we'll look at the policy here in just a minute, told the policy to tell these machines to check for updates every hour. Do you really want to do that? Probably not. You may want to do it every day or every week or whatever because there just are not that many update sequences now. We're supposed to have update Tuesday once a month. They have out-of-band updates which come out irregularly, but those are the once-a-week thing. Is it going to kill your operation? Probably not. So we did the scan. Yes, we have a lot of stuff missing. The reason we have a lot of stuff missing is I put those machines in a domain. I've installed WSUS, which is where it's supposed to get its updates from, and I haven't approved those updates. To approve an update, well, we had some security ones in here. Would you just go in here and let's just pick this one because if I pick a whole bunch of them, it's going to take a long time. In the approve, we have computers and we have unassigned clients, servers, and clients. If I only wanted to approve it for one set of machines, I just go in and approve. If I want to approve it and apply it to the children, I approve the install and then apply it to the children, and it should then inherit that, and you do OK, and it goes through and tells me that it had success there, that it's now been approved for install. So this tool really is an improvement over, okay, let's go configure 3,000 machines to go to the Internet to get their updates. Okay. So that is the WSUS console overview. In the group policy management, and I did this, I think, in the default domain. Actually, I did it in the default domain and default domain controllers policy. You're going to find as you go through configuring Active Directory, the default domain controllers policy is the one that really controls the domain controllers controls the domain controllers. So you may want to do policies for the domain controllers there. The default domain policy is going to be inherited into everything else. I think in this activity they ask you to do a new policy, that's a great way to do it. We have, over the course of years here, after fooling around with this stuff starting with Windows 2000 and making policies, and then, golly, where did we put that policy? Got into the habit of creating policies based on function, so that you may want a policy for WSUS, and we have one called WSUS, the WSUS policy. So if I want to change that, I know where to go. Is it in the domain policy? Where is it? Which policy is it in? If you do those things from a practical standpoint, may serve you a little better than, oh yeah, I'm just going to put everything in the domain policy. You may not want it there, because then you can go back and link those policies to wherever you want them to be. Client machines here, if I had a new policy, I can create and link it, or I can link an existing group policy object, and the only ones here are the domain controllers and the default domain policy. Default domain policy is going to be inherited in there. But let's, which one is that? the default domain policies, go in and edit it. For the WSUS policies, administrative settings, Windows components, and then we should go down here to Windows Update, the one at the bottom, and you see that they're turned on. Configure automatic updates. We enabled it. Told it to automatically download and schedule the installation. What that tells it to do is automatically download, schedule, and it will do the update. The other options here are notify for download and notify for install. Tell you that, hey, there are updates, you want me to download them. Once they're downloaded, okay, I downloaded them, now do you want me to update? Auto download and install, automatically download the updates and tell me that they're ready for install. And if you'll notice down here on this machine, that's what's happened. This is a domain controller. The other is auto download and schedule the install, which we did here. Allow local admin to choose the settings, which you probably don't want to do. I don't know why you would do that if you wanted to manage it as the administrator. Schedule the install every day. You can pick whatever you want to do. Schedule the install, auto download, and schedule the install. Once I schedule the install, then this says that every day at the install time, 11 a.m., and whenever you want to do it. 11 a.m. probably not a real good time to do that, because that's when your users are going to be there. What you want to do is to do it sometime when the machines are on and the users aren't really using them. We used to have them to download in the middle of the afternoon before we had all these afternoon classes. We had to change that. Now we have them scheduled to do the updates like 10:30 or 10:45 at night, when the machines are least likely to have somebody using them. 10:45 at night. We hope that everybody's gone by then. Specify the intranet update location in the properties. Where is your WSUS server? It's on this machine, 2560 instruct.cis, 2560.local. This is one of those DNS issues. If your machines can't resolve that site, that location, then they're not going to get updates. DNS, DNS, DNS. DNS is a really big deal in Active Directory, and I really can't emphasize that enough. And understanding how DNS works is a really big deal. And if you can only take like 2 things away from this course, how DNS works, focus on that, and I think WSUS is the other really big deal. DHCP, pretty basic process. A lot of these other things, pretty basic processes. You kind of put them in and let them go away. I guess the other big one would be how to manage printers, because that's one thing that can get you in trouble. Well, actually, there are others too. Permissions goes on and on and on and on, but a lot of them we have visited before. WSUS would kind of, yep, here it is, but this is what we want to do. DNS, I don't know that you can actually do DNS enough times until you actually have had to sit down and struggle with it and say, how can I make this thing work, and work your way through those things. But where are we going to go? Where is our server? The properties here, the automatic updates detection frequency. How often am I going to tell my machines to go see if there are updates? And I configure this one for an hour because it's in a demonstration sort of process here in a class. In reality, how often are you going to have your machines check for updates? If you only install them once a day, then what's the need of checking for the updates 14 times a day, every hour, if you're only going to tell it that it can install it at 11 o'clock at night? Check for the updates maybe twice a day. What this will do is then give you a little bit more bandwidth as it trickles those updates out. And it won't just dump everything. It'll trickle them out as you go through the process. Allow non-administrators to receive update notifications. In the original, if you did the download and notify, non-administrators would never see the notifications. What this does is allows you to give the user that's working on the machine the option of installing the updates when it's convenient for them. because it'll trickle down, and your users are probably not going to be administrators, at least we hope not, and then they'll get the notification that says the updates are ready for install. Do you want to do this? And then they can do that. I'm going to lunch. Okay, so I'm going to install the updates while I'm at lunch. Allow automatic updates, immediate installation. This is one that you may or may not want to do. And I'll give you an example. When I was the network administrator here, and we had them doing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the director of education came and said one afternoon, my computer just rebooted for no apparent reason. Well, the apparent reason was we had the update scheduled for 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they were configured for automatic install. So whatever you were doing, it just, and if that update needed a reboot, it rebooted. So that's one, again, you may or may not want to configure. Turn on recommended updates via automatic updates property. And one of the things I forgot to say, if you want to see what these things do, there's an explain tab on each of these. What this does is turns on the automatic update. So we went through all this trouble. Now it would be nice if we actually did these things. And what they have you do, and the reason I did this because it's in the labs, is go down here and enable automatic targeting, the target group name, because I created those group names. One of them was clients. This one will target the clients group. So we can target them by clients and that by groups, and that's what that one says. So kind of a multi-step process for WSUS to work. You've got to install it. You've got to download the updates. You've got to download the updates for what you have in your domain. And then you have to configure a policy to do those updates. And then you have to have machines that are members of your domain. And again, for yours, just join the XP machine to your domain. Should be a relatively straightforward process after you configure its DNS to look at your domain controller's DNS for the domain controller IP address. When you do the downloads, just get the Windows XP. Otherwise, it's going to take an eternity. Oh yeah, the other one that can sometimes get you, and it got me the other day on the real WSUS server, which was not working right. In the options down here somewhere, update languages, and this one is down here. Occasionally, and this was really bad in the older ones, it'll have all the languages selected. You probably don't need Arabic and Chinese and Japanese. You probably only need English, but you can select the languages that you need. Be sure that it's only selected English. Otherwise, you're going to download a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want. So that's it on WSUS. One of the tools that you really do probably want to know how to configure. I guess the last thing that I want to look at here is creating data collector sets. The data collector sets are the ones that allow us, and there aren't any here, that allow us to save in a file certain performance aspects of this. When you start these things, the first thing that you're going to get is they're always going to start out as processor time, and you can make that go away. The way you get counters in is add counters. You can add counters for the local computer, or you can add counters for remote computers with the firewall disclaimer and with the you got to have the authority to get there disclaimer. There are a number of things that we can do in here. One of the issues that we have had kind of with our iSCSI is being able to get back and forth. The disk activity, and disk will kind of tend to be a choke point for you. But we can add, let's look at disk transfers per second. Which ones do I want? I can add it down here. I can add all instances. If I only wanted specific drive letters, I could do that, or I could just add totals. I'll add all the instances just to have something there. And then if we wanted to look at maybe our network interface, what kind of transfer are we get? Bytes received per second, bytes sent, current bandwidth, inbound, outbound packets, packets received per second, packets sent per second, packets per second. Let's just do that. And I have, again, I have both of the NICs. I can do all instances, or I can pick an individual NIC in order to do that. Okay, when I get this thing, we can look at it with a line, or if you prefer the histogram bar, you can use it. If I then wanted to make this performance monitor a data collector set, I just right-click, data collector set, name it whatever we want to name it, next. This tells me where it's going to store it, %system drive, C:/perf logs, admin demo, and you can change that location if you want, but where you want the files to save. Finish. And now if I go to the user-defined collector sets, I have that. If I wanted to go in and change the properties of this thing, I could do that. The default is binary, and this is just me. I like the comma-separated value because I can then put those into Excel and use them. A sample interval every 1 second may be too much. You may want to do every 5 minutes or whatever you want to do. Keep in mind that every second, if you have a lot of stuff that you're collecting, this can actually slow down your machine too. So I think that takes care of the kind of new things, except I did say that I wanted to quickly do an NSLookup demo because NSLookup seems to be a mystery to, if I could spell, a number of people. If I wanted to, and this is using the address, the server, it's using the server on the local host here. What if I wanted to find the email servers, and we're going to find out if my DNS server here is working. What if we want to find the email servers? What kind of record do you use to find email servers? Set type equal MX. So he uses MX records, and let's say ecpi.edu. And let's see if we work timed out, localhost timed out. It's not letting me do the ECPI, and that may be because of the internal external addresses. What I did was do gmail.com. I then get the mail exchanger, those addresses. You can get it on your local machines, yeah. But I think that, and I've done some modifications to my DNS server that it may actually be sending it to the wrong place in order to do these things. Let's try one. Let's try Skype.
40, 20, 10, 5, 30 on there. Is that just like which one it prefers, I guess? Or which one
Okay, Skyline it worked. I'm sorry, which now?
The 40, 20, 10, 5, 30. These numbers are there.
Yeah, those should be the preference, the preferences that are put into DNS. So Skyline worked, MX A gateway, MX B gateway, and the reason is the gateways are where the stuff actually goes for the filtering. The reason there are two addresses is they're in the process of transferring from one Exchange server to another Exchange server. So right now there are two addresses depending on which server that the user that the user's on. If I then wanted to, and this one gives me the IP addresses. So what you want, and it does have a help function in here that you can look at things. What record do I want? If I want an A record, if I want to find an IP address and I have the name, then I can set the type equal to A. If I wanted to change which server that I wanted to be on, 60.1.5, 1.4. I should just be able to type server. 10.60.1.4 is the one for the for our domain, ecpivab.edu. Okay, now then, using the other DNS server, I can resolve the ecpi.edu. But you notice that it didn't give me IP addresses. What if I now wanted to find the IP address of mxagateway.ecpi.edu? How am I going to get that? Set type equal A. And the A record resolves the name to an IP address. And let's see if it can make me look silly. mxagateway.ecpi.edu. And I find that it is 199.36.13.8. What if I wanted to find the name servers for the ecpi.edu domain? Could I do set type, if I can type, equal NS, and then I'll do ecpi.edu, and we find that we have 3 name servers, and this one was really nice to give me the name servers and their IP addresses, NS1, NS2, and NS3. 2 of them are on the same subnet, another one's on a different subnet, and the way these are set up, one is actually in a different physical location. And that kind of makes sense because where they're set up right now, the .13 addresses are in Virginia Beach, I'll tell you that. They have issues occasionally, you know, like hurricanes, and they lose power occasionally from these hurricanes. So if they do that, then you'll still be able to resolve the addresses. Now, you may not be able to get to everything because a lot of those resources run at Virginia Beach too. Just because you can get an IP address for a name doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get the resource. It just means that you resolve the IP address in DNS. Whether it's available or not is a function of whether the resource is actually up or not. I think those are the things that I wanted to review here this morning. I guess the other one is that on that download and notify, when I go to, on this server, install, I can install the updates. If I wanted to change the settings, since this is now a member of a domain and we're controlling it through Active Directory, notice everything's grayed out, and that's going to be one of your indications that, yes, somebody else is managing what goes on there. The domain controller's policy I set to download and notify, because servers, again, do you want servers booting automatically? The answer is, maybe not. You may not want them to go offline. So you can control it through your policies, whatever you want to do with things. And with that, I will quit unless you have questions. Going once, going twice, no questions, okay. Time to do labs.